Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to Black Children's Book Week. We are celebrating Black Children's Book Week, but welcome to our virtual summit and welcome to everyone who's going to catch the replay, y'all. I am your host for the evening. My name is Allison G. Thompson. I am the owner and head creator of Green Line Creative LLC. Y'all, our mission here is to simply amplify the Black voice and to hold space for Black protagonists, y'all. Just a little bit about Black Children's Book Week. Black Children's Book Week is a global celebration of Black children and the people who ensure Black children are represented in books and in the media. So this year, y'all, is the second anniversary of the celebration, and we are so excited to be a part, y'all. I am excited about our guest this evening. Amazing individual. And so our guest this evening is Elyse Jones. Y'all, Elyse is a thought-provoking international speaker who has trained and supported thousands of parents, educators, and villagers for over a decade as a school counselor and psychotherapist. As a licensed social worker, certified parenting coach, and ordained minister, she understands that being a mental health professional isn't just a career, it's a calling. She is the founder and chief consultant of Parenting for the Culture, a therapeutic coaching and consulting company committed to bringing awareness and interruption to generational patterns that often sneak into our parenting practices and plague our communities. She provides collaborative services and interactive workshops to schools, to school districts, churches, and corporations who understand that peace on earth begins at home. She is a wife to an amazing husband, Carlton Jones. Together, they have two beautiful children, their 2-year-old son, KJ, and their 5-year-old daughter, Gracie. Although small in stature, their children have been huge in impact, daily reminding them of this truth. Your greatest contribution to the kingdom of God may not be something you do, but someone you raise. By the grace of God, they are committed to intentional parenting, raising a generation of children who will not need to recover from their childhood. Y'all, we are in for a treat. Please welcome y'all, Elyse Jones.
Hello. Hey, Allison.
Hey, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing wonderful. Listen, your bio just got me all types of excited.
Good
All
to
types of
go.
so excited that I forgot to read your quote. Y'all, wait a minute. Let me read this quote. We must remember that one day our children are going to follow our example instead of our advice. Carolina King. Listen, I'm excited. I am excited. So,
Likewise.
yes, let's jump right in. So, how do you define emotionally intelligent children?
So let's start with just emotional intelligence in general. If
Okay.
that's okay. I think that's important, right? So emotional intelligence in general for all people is this awareness, the ability to be aware and manage our emotions. And
Mhm.
that's really two-sided. So on one side of that coin is our ability to understand, again, use and manage our own emotions. So
Mhm.
when we think about a person with a higher emotional intelligence, they are better at having ways to positively and productively, okay, relieve stress, communicate needs, build relationships, set boundaries, all those things along that side, right? Then on the other side of that coin, emotional intelligence is also the ability to understand the emotions of people around you. That's
Mhm.
important, right? Not
Mhm.
just know what I'm feeling and know how to handle it, but also being able to show empathy, being able to diffuse conflict. So the ability to attune to other people's feelings is also emotional intelligence. And I wanted to say that first because when it comes to children, I just want to be very clear that it's not realistic to expect kids to do that 100% well 100% of the time, right? We have to consider development. And so when it comes to emotionally intelligent children, these are kids who are being provided the tools to do these things, being provided the example to do these things, and so they so they can build the capacity later in life.
Wow. Whew. All right. So, as a parent, oh, let me ask you this: was parenting coaching your dream job?
Girl, I didn't even know it was a job.
So how were you introduced to the world of parent coaching?
Oh, so yes, literally, I kid you not, I did not even know it was a career option till like 3 years ago, to be honest. So like you mentioned in my bio, like I've been doing this work for some time. My background being in social work and being in a school setting as a counselor, doing work for a private practice, doing therapy. And so it has always been in this work, but it wasn't until I was pregnant with our son, which is our second child, our 2-year-old, that parent coaching found me. Literally, I came across some information on it that really piqued my interest, because what I read, we were already practicing with our first child. And to know, I was like people out here like doing this as a career, like what, like, and so I was really intrigued. Which of course made me start researching, reached out to the Giant Institute of Parenting, amazing organization and program. And then I went through the program and officially became a certified parenting coach. But I think it's just amazing that everything throughout the years led up to this, not just my education, when I think about, my bachelor's and my master's and all of that stuff, but even my experience, Allison, like as a child, like the way my parents raised me, it was like, oh, like, even though they didn't read the books, right? They didn't know, gentle parenting was a thing, but that's how I was brought up. And so it literally was a moment where my experience and my education came together in an amazing way, that really pushed me into this. So like it literally found me. It found me, but I'm so grateful that it did.
Right. My dad always says something. He says like seeds always grow in fertile ground. And so thinking about, you just said your journey, like those were just little seeds. And now you're seeing like the plants and the fruit of those seeds. So that's awesome. So this week we are celebrating Black Children's Book Week. It's a global celebration of Black children and the people who ensure Black children are represented in books and other children's media. So why should we have more conversations around raising emotionally intelligent children?
Man, it's because it's so necessary. Like, how can we not talk about this more? Like, it's a skill that's needed for life, and it impacts all areas of our life, right? It impacts our relationships, not just personally, but professionally. It impacts our friendships. And even there are so many studies out, Allison, that's like asking employers and CEO and bosses, like, what's the number one thing they look for in people? And it's not even those hard skills, it's those soft skills, which falls under emotional intelligence, being able to be a team player, right? Being able to show compassion and empathy, having integrity, being where you say you're going to be. Those are those small skills that even get us farther advanced in the corporate world as well. And so it's just so necessary when it comes to being a well-rounded person, that we include emotional intelligence in that conversation.
Yeah. And just to deviate a little bit, so as a parent listening to this, because I know these are going to be really adults listening to this
Mhm.
virtual summit. So as a parent, like what do I need to do for self to ensure that I am, planting the seed of emotional intelligence in my children?
Mm. And that really, that's why that quote that you read is one of my favorites, because it talks about like how one day, literally, right, our kids are going to follow our example more than our advice. And when we think about like emotions, like what's one of the main things you hear? And y'all can even type it in the chat. What's one of the
Yeah.
main things we hear or say when it comes to our kids' emotions, just in general, blanket statement? What's some things you've heard, Allison, when it comes to our kids' emotions?
Ooh, uh, she's bossy.
Mm,
Or
yeah.
he don't talk enough,
Mm,
or he's shy, or she's too loud, or she could,
mhm,
things like that.
mhm,
Mhm.
mhm. Absolutely. And a very common one, right? Calm down. right? We
Mm,
hear we hear
mm,
that said a
mhm,
lot or yelled out often, and it's like, yes, we can say that. That's that advice piece,
mhm,
right? If that's what we're saying
mhm,
with our words, but how are we modeling how to calm down? And
mm,
so, I just one would say I have so much love and so much compassion for the parent who, first of all, desires to grow in this way. Because the
right.
reality, Allison, is that a lot of parents were not taught, because it's a skill. It's a skill.
Mhm,
It's not something
mhm,
we just innately have in us. It is a skill set that has to be taught. And for so many adults who are listening, maybe
mhm,
there was a skill you were never taught or had modeled growing up. And
right.
so when it comes to being able to just to grow in this skill, I think that's where we start to grow into it. And I was
Mhm,
going to name it at the end, but I will go ahead and put it out there now since you mentioned it. But I
yes.
think it's important that adults have the tools to do the work. And so
Yeah.
if that is you, and maybe throughout this conversation you will hear more about if that is you. But if that is you, if you were like, I don't even know where to start with this, I do have an ebook available for download on my website, and they're called Feelings,
Okay.
Not Fictions.
Yes.
And
Yes.
such a necessary topic because, again, for so many adults who are listening, it may have not been a skill taught, right? Maybe they
Right.
had years of emotional dismissal, being told things like stop crying or don't be a baby. That's dismissing the feelings.
Mhm,
Or maybe
mhm,
they were denied. They're denying their emotions became a form of self-protection because life
mm,
taught you that you can't trust people with your emotions because they'll either make fun of them or take advantage of
yeah.
them. Either
Yeah.
way, the model that we have most likely about our feelings and our emotions
Mhm,
started in childhood. And so many
yes.
times we try to fix them instead of just feeling them. And so in this ebook, like it literally walks through step by step, Allison, on how
Mhm,
to change that lens and start to view emotions as a house guest.
wow.
Because the reality is when we resist them, buried feelings don't die. They take root and they grow.
Mm,
Grow
yeah.
in explosive behavior. They
Yeah.
grow even in physical sickness, right?
Mhm, mhm,
They do not die. They take root and they
wow.
grow. And so they're called feelings, not fixing is a way to really begin to look at our emotions in a new way, to understand them and
Mhm,
even appreciate them, to honor them. That's really what
yeah.
it's about. Because honor our emotions, we honor ourselves. And so if any of that resonates with anyone who's
Yeah.
listening, I encourage you to check that out. Like I said, it's not just an ebook where you're just reading and like, oh, okay, that was
Mhm,
cool. You're doing
mhm,
work about it, right?
mhm.
You have reflective questions. You have tools that you also can apply outside of reading it. So I highly suggest checking it out.
Yes, and the information will be in the chat for you all to check that out. That is awesome. Listen, I can't wait. I cannot wait. I'm excited. And that was actually one of the questions I was gonna ask, like, what really hinders what hinders us from teaching our children these skills. And I think that's really gonna answer those questions for us and help us do the work for ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so since we are celebrating the child also, but we got to talk about the parent too and the village. So
Absolutely.
what are some Black children's books that you can share with us who that talk about feelings and that talk about being emotionally sound?
Yes, absolutely. So I do want to just walk through a couple of books. If you go back one, is it one before that one? There
Yes,
we
there we
go.
go. Mhm.
So one, it's just so cool for kids to have a visual, right? Because like we talked about, emotional intelligence is a skill set, right? It has to be built, developed. So the more kids hear stories, and like when I tell you kid, well, we all know, right? Kids love a good story. Even if your kid does not love a book, you can make up a story that will have them totally engaged. And so using this is such a huge tool. But this first book is called Allie All Alone. Is a
Mhm.
really cool book that addresses anger. And I
Mm.
think this is so important because it really normalizes anger. And so it
Mhm.
teaches how to, one, acknowledge when we're angry, because it's okay to be angry.
Mhm.
But in this book, it's so funny because it's like a small thing, right? But that's how many times have our kids experience something, it's like, it's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
And if we're
It
not
is.
careful, we'll label it as a small thing, but it's like, no, this is producing big emotion. So Allie
It is.
crayon breaks, okay? Her crayon
Mm.
breaks turns into a whole nother person.
Yeah.
Hence the red little figure you see down there. But this book is so good. I love about it. If you look at that picture to the lower right,
Mm-hmm.
it has like different color outlines, right? And inside of there is
Mm-hmm.
Allie. And so throughout the book, she is literally this brother is giving her different tools to practice, and each time
Mm-hmm.
she practices the tool, she takes off a layer of her anger. And so by the end of the story, which is so important for kids to know, your anger is not you, right? Your
Mm-hmm.
anger is just something that you're experiencing. So let me help you take these layers off so we can get to the real you. And I think
Yeah.
this is so powerful because the reality is anger is a secondary emotion. There is
Mm.
always something more underneath the anger. Usually it's sadness. Usually
Yeah.
it's disappointment, right? Hence with this, she broke her crayon. She was sad, but it comes out as anger because
Mm-hmm.
anger gives us a sense of control, right? And so if we see that and when we think about the Allison, how often do we try to shut down anger, even punish anger?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, we have to let the body go through that stress cycle.
Right.
And so I love this book. Not only does it show, again, it normalizes anger, shows this, process, but parents,
Right.
these are tools you can practice. So he has us do things like punch a pillow. That's something we do here in
Mm-hmm.
our home. I have,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, a 5-year-old and a
Mm-hmm.
2-year-old. Punch pillows. We
Yeah.
scream into pillows because I
Yeah.
understand that we have to get that out. We push
Right.
walls, right, because it's an energy that we have to
Mm-hmm.
get out. So this book really
Mm-hmm.
normalizes how to help kids move through that energy, so we can get back to the real person. And then here's the thing, Allison, at the end, they solve the problem. That's what we teach in our home. What is our
Yeah.
anger for us to solve? When we feel anger, that means there's a problem that I need
Right.
to solve. First, I got to get to myself. I got to find myself,
Right.
right? So I can solve the problem. And so at the end, they tape the crayon together. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just a beautiful story that walks us through, again, the normalization of anger, how to
Mm-hmm.
strip down those layers to get back to ourselves so we can think clearly to solve the
Mm-hmm.
problem in front of us.
Awesome. Awesome. Look, I need this book. We definitely have to add this one to our library.
It's really good.
Yes.
Really good. And this one is Ruby finds a worry.
Mm-hmm.
Again, in this story, normalizing worry. And
Mm-hmm.
it's so good because as you can see in that top picture on the right
Mm-hmm.
side, basically one day Ruby realizes something is following her around, and she's like, "What is this?" And you see how small it is.
Mm-hmm.
So she
Yeah.
goes throughout the story, basically ignoring it. Right. And a lot of time when we think about how we are taught to deal with emotions, it's kind of again
Mm-hmm.
sweeping under the rug, right?
Mm-hmm.
Paying no mind. And we see throughout the story, no, that's not helpful because
Right.
the worry gets bigger and bigger to the point where she can't do nothing but focus on that worry. And so
Right.
in this story is showing the importance of addressing our emotions, the
Mm-hmm.
importance of communicating to a trusted adult, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we're going or feeling these things. And so that's what happens with Ruby. She eventually finds someone that she can talk through. And as she starts to talk, we see the worry get smaller and smaller. And I
Wow.
also love that it's very realistic. It's very clear that just because we talk about it don't mean the worry completely goes away.
Right.
It doesn't mean
Right.
it'll never come back because we're gonna worry, right?
Right.
But it's giving a practical way to handle that, which is talking to people that we trust so we
Mm-hmm.
can not, so the worry doesn't overshadow our entire being. And so
Yeah.
again, a very practical tool to let kids know when you're worried, right? We need to
Mm-hmm.
talk about that. But
Mm-hmm.
cannot stress enough, Allison, cannot stress enough that in order for our kids to see us as someone they can bring those concerns to,
Mm-hmm.
we have to
Mm-hmm.
be that safe place, right? We
Right.
have to be
Right.
the space that validates their emotions without beating them up for
Mm-hmm.
feeling how they're feeling. And so, but
Mm-hmm.
that's really has a worry, which again, a very, very cute but powerful book
Yes.
teaching kids how to
Absolutely.
address their concerns.
Right. I even now, like, and my husband and I do the same thing. Like, if we're worried about something, we'll like go to our kids and be like, you know what, I'm a little concerned about this. Because
Mhm.
like kids really give sound advice. But that's if those seeds are planted. Because like
Mhm.
I'll tell Lucas, like, I'm worried about, X, Y. He was like, don't worry about that. It's not, you'll do fine. Like the you'll do
Mhm.
fine is sometimes all you need to hear something. So
Mhm. Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
awesome. I love that.
That's so good though that you and like you said, I know you
Mhm.
guys are doing it in an age appropriate way when it comes to what you're
Mhm.
sharing with them. But that's so good
Mhm.
that you are letting them see that we have worries sometimes too, right? They're
Right.
able to model how you handle them. That's
Yes.
so good. That's so
Yes.
good. So this book is Jabari Jumps, another great book, and this focus is about fear, which
Mm.
again is a very common emotion, right? And so Jabari and their family going to the pool, and he's supposed to be jumping, but once he gets up there, he's like, "Hold on now," and he realized that he is very afraid. But
Yeah.
the beautiful thing about this book, if any parents check it out, I love the example it gives us as the parent on how to handle that
Mm.
fear. So his
Mhm.
father wasn't like, "Boy, just jump," like it ain't no big deal. Like
Mhm.
he did
Mhm.
not, he did not
Mhm.
minimize his fear.
Mhm.
He addressed it. So Jabari, he noticed too what was going on. So Jabari got back off. This top picture you
Mhm.
see, he down. He's like, I think I need to stretch. So he's
Mhm.
stalling, right? But the dad noticed that, like, okay, I see what you're doing, because behavior is always
Mhm.
communicating something, right?
Mhm.
So the dad, again, is a book for kids, but it really teaches us as parents a lot. The
Mhm.
dad step back to see, okay, I noticed that he's stalling, but I'm not going to push
Mhm.
him. And he talked
Mhm.
to him, encouraged him, but again, did not belittle his fear, right? And so
Mhm.
it really takes us through that story, just a beautiful way to show that we can acknowledge the fear without letting the fear stop our kids, but
Right.
also allowing them to be afraid, right? My
Yeah.
baby husband is, you can be brave and scared at the same time. You can
Mhm.
do that,
Mhm.
right? But that's building that emotional intelligence to know, okay, you are afraid, right? What can
Yeah.
we do right now to address that in a way that you're still comfortable? So
Right.
again, it's just a great book when it comes to the very common emotion of fear for
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah. I love that.
And then B is for breathe. Is pretty self-explanatory. It's the
Mhm.
ABCs, basically for different tools for regulation. And it literally
Mhm.
walks from A through Z, giving tools that literally parents can take from this book and practice. I think
Mhm.
it's important to name tools are just that. Okay. Tools are
Mhm.
not one size fit all. I'm not gonna go
Mhm.
build a whole house with a screwdriver, right? Tools do not do every, so
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
important. A lot of times we practice these things like, oh, that didn't work, breathe it don't work. It's a
Mm.
tool, right?
Mhm.
And with breathing, it's the science behind it, but you're right, breathing won't always work for every single
Mhm.
event the same way every single time. So what
Right.
other tools do you need in your toolkit? What other tools do your kids need in their toolkit that actually works
Mhm.
for them? Okay. And
Mhm.
so this goes A through Z, with just different things that parents can kind of pull from the book, put into their toolbox, and practice as a
Mhm.
family. Really quick before we go to the next book, I think it's
Mhm.
important to name parents, if it's a great way to be intentional about regulation tools is not practicing them when the house is on fire. Right? So when we
Mm.
need to
Yeah.
regulate it, that's
Yeah.
not the time to practice regulation tools.
Yeah.
So when we're all in a good space and we're calm, we try to do that here at home. Like, okay, we chill.
Mhm.
Let's just scream into a
That's
pillow a
it.
little bit, right?
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
breathe. Let's even for the kids who don't like to breathe, because some parents say it so all the kids like, I don't want to do that. How
Oh,
can we
yeah.
switch that? Blow some
Yeah.
bubbles. Let's literally get a straw in a cup. Let's
Mhm.
blow some sneaky way to get your kids to breathe without them knowing they're
Mhm.
breathing. Or
Mm.
blowing bubbles, right? With just
Yeah.
regular bubbles.
Yeah.
But practicing these things when we are all in a good regulated space
Mhm.
helps it be more accessible when we most need them. So
Right.
parents, you don't hear anything else, like start practicing it today. So we can again build that muscle. So when we really need those tools, we
Mhm.
all are in a better space because we practiced it,
Mhm.
practiced that before.
I can speak to that. We are some breathing people over here. When I see the frustration or the fear, I'll
Mhm.
say, "Take it. Let's inhale and exhale." And so the other day, I think it was yesterday, I hit my leg or something on, when the funny bone ain't really funny. And so I
Not
hit
at
my knee on something, and Arya said, "Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale." I was
Yeah.
like, "Well, I was breathe that fast, but I get you, girl. I said, let me." Because I was about to, so yes.
That's
Inhale,
now
exhale,
listen.
inhale,
I
exhale.
kid you not. That's so cute. Look, I'm telling you, kids
Yeah,
are some of our greatest accountability partners. If we let them, right? If we
yeah.
give our babies a voice to hold us accountable, they will
Mhm,
do just that
mhm.
easily.
Absolutely.
And similar to what you just named, I mean, it sound
Mhm.
like you was on a good note. But yesterday, it was just last night. We were trying to hurry up, go somewhere, and
Uh-huh.
I said something to the kids. And my oldest said, "Why you talking like that?" She said, "You talking hard." And I was so irritated. And I was like, "Why you talking like that?" And
Right.
here, no word. She was like, "That
Mhm.
sound like Mama Bear. That don't sound like Mama. That sound
Ooh,
like Mama Bear."
yeah,
I was like, she
yeah,
was like, "Do you need to breathe?" I was like, "Girl, yes, I do." I was so
yes,
irritated. I was like, "Girl," I was like, "You
yes,
right. This Mama Bear, let me calm myself down because first of all,
right,
they just thought we running late. Let me get
right,
my breath together." So,
yes.
but again, when we empower them with those tools and then give them
Mhm,
permission to hold us accountable,
mhm,
it is so powerful. So I love that.
yes,
Shout out to your
yes.
baby.
Right. And y'all allow these kids to hold y'all account. It's not disrespect at all. I promise you. It's really them like having a voice. Like our kids,
Mhm.
like when I tell people who meet Arya, I warn them first. I'm like, listen, Arya plays no games. My mama called her. My mama said something about the pandemic babies. They're different. They're different. And I have to warn people about Arya. I'm like, she's gonna tell you how she feels. If you don't like that, then you may not want to talk to her, because
Mhm.
she's gonna let you know. But
Mhm.
like let these kids have a voice, y'all. Y'all will learn so much from your own children, or even the children around you. Y'all will learn so much from them.
Mm, and I have to put a pin right there for a second,
Hmm.
Allison, if it's okay,
Hmm.
because that is so important. And
Hmm.
I recognize that part of my life work is
Hmm.
really helping families to intentionally break those generational cycles
Yeah,
that are just not serving our kids, right?
yeah,
And I'm just
yeah.
so curious to those who are listening, like, did you have a voice as a child? What did that look like? Because the reality is the freedom we had in
Hmm.
our own home with our voice,
Hmm.
it impacts how we raise our own kids. So either
Yeah.
we're doing following the exact same blueprint or we're doing
Hmm.
something completely opposite. Either
Hmm.
way, it impacts us, right? And so
Hmm.
I think we have to be intentional to become curious about our own upbringing and ask
Hmm.
questions about our own beliefs about our kids. Because you're right, in our
Right.
community, people who look like us, it is
Hmm.
very common for kids do not have a voice. We have
Hmm.
this do as I say, not as I do mentality, this because I
Hmm.
said so mentality. And I know we
Mhm,
mean well. Parents, please hear me when I say I know every parent listening
mhm.
to this loves their child dearly.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
recognize it, right? And then, but the question becomes, does that child feel love?
mm,
Right? We have
yeah,
we have to ask it. And
yeah,
so just really become, I'll just encourage anyone who really become curious about your own relationship with your voice, right?
mhm,
And what kind of relationship are we helping our kids to cultivate with their
mhm,
voice? Because again, kids grow up to be adults. And so for
mhm,
the adult to never embrace their voice, they can struggle with setting boundaries. They can
yeah,
struggle with saying no. They can struggle with communicating how they feel in a healthy way. And don't
yeah,
we want better for our kids, right? And
yeah,
so just being intentional about identifying what are these patterns of thinking that we have about kids, and is
mhm,
it potentially limiting their potential when it comes to their relationship with their emotions and their voice.
right. Ooh, and we could stay right there all day, but
I just have
I
to
guess
say,
look,
that's just so important. That's so
yeah,
important.
and it is. I tell my parents all the time. Like I talk to my mom, like my dad in the morning, my mom in the evening. But I
Mhm.
tell them like y'all, thank you for letting me be my curious little weird self. Like they just let me be. They let me
Yeah.
be, but they watch from the corner, but like they allow me to be
Mhm.
curious. And I really
Yeah.
think like even now as an adult, like if somebody tells me something, I'm gonna go find out more about it because
Mhm.
I'm just that's just in my nature. But
I
like
love
what if they didn't? What if they confine me to
it.
a box? Would
Mhm.
I be who I am today if they didn't allow me to be me? And so,
Mhm.
y'all, we just never know what's inside of our children and how we
Mhm.
can literally be the catalyst, for them to be whatever it is that they're supposed to be. Don't limit your kids. Please don't limit your kids.
Oh, I love that. And I just got in there. I'm so thankful that our experience, like, could we share a
Mhm,
similar experience with our parents, right?
mhm,
Having a
mhm,
voice, that, that type of care that,
mhm.
again, if we're honest, is not often seen as a norm in our culture.
Yeah,
But I'm so
yeah,
thankful that narrative is changing. It's
yeah.
like I know so many
Mhm,
parents who are
mhm,
like committed to doing things differently, that
mhm.
that didn't have that experience. And so again,
Right.
if that's you parents, shout out to y'all for doing the work. 'Cause I'm
Yes,
telling you, the narrative
yes.
is changing.
Absolutely.
households are healing and, and just really becoming
Yeah,
curious. So it's just an honor to do this work and
it
witness
is.
it. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's go to the next slide.
All right. This book is special to me, guys. I'm not
Yes.
biased or anything. Maybe a little. But so G is for Grace, the ABCs of Care. I say it's super special to me. It's actually authored by our oldest child. Our 5-year-old daughter is the published author of this book. But I think it's so again, I'm not just using it because it's her, it's a good book, but but about emotional intelligent
Mhm.
behaviors, we have to remember they are built on the top of the foundation of two things, and that's character
Mhm.
and example, right?
Mhm.
And so we kind of already hit on the example piece when it comes to like what we are modeling. And if you want tools with that, check out that ebook. But the
Mhm.
other foundation for emotional intelligence is character, because when we think
Mhm.
about character, that's our values, our virtues, right? These traits
Right.
that literally underlie our thoughts and actions. So, for example, respect, right? Character value, but it motivates our desire for relationship, and that drives us to want to be more empathetic for people. So
Mhm.
emotional intelligence is built on character. And so in this book, G is for Grace, the ABCs of character, it literally similar to B is for Breathe. It goes through A through Z, but given different character traits that now can become daily conversation in the household. So we often refer to this book when it comes to like again, like showing integrity, encouraging
Mhm.
each other. And so it's a way, because even when it comes to emotions, a lot of people kind of fall short in the area of emotional intelligence because they never had the vocabulary for it. Kind of like
Mhm.
when we say, how you feeling? I'm straight, I'm fine. It's like, no, you're not. No, you're
Right.
not. Even when we feel some type of way. What is
Mhm.
what I know we made it popular, but
Mhm.
what type of way? No, like tell me how you're feeling.
Mhm.
But a lot
Right.
of times we were never equipped with the language to
Mhm.
describe our emotions. And so this again, when it comes to building that foundation for character, it gives the language to back to. And so when we
Mhm.
do different things like, now help me understand, how was that showing integrity, or help me understand how was that
Mhm.
honesty, right? So giving kids a example, of illustrative example
Mhm.
of these words, and using them as a way to model, because again, it starts with us. How do we model these character traits and then point them back to them? And so that is
Right.
G's for Grace, the ABCs of character.
Awesome. Awesome. And something we always say in our household, like if they're, frustrated, hey, use your words. Let me know what's going on so I can help you. But they can't use their words, they don't have the words. So
Mhm.
go on. Yes, absolutely. I agree.
Yes.
All day. All
Yes,
day.
yes, yes.
Awesome. Well, how can we keep up with you and your parenting, your coaching journey and all things parenting for the culture?
Yeah, so definitely can like and follow on Facebook. That's Parenting
Mhm.
for the Culture on
Mhm.
Facebook, and our website is www.parentingfortheculture.com.
Awesome. And we're going to put all of that in the chat. As always, Elyse, it is always a pleasure conversing with you. Even in text messages, you just brighten up my day. You just brighten up my day. Look, big lights over here. It's big lights.
Big light. All year, big light.
Yes. What? All
Allison,
year.
thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Just hang on for a little bit. We're going to close out, y'all. Thank you again for being a part of our virtual summit and learning that there's a Black children's book for that. Even for our emotions, even for our feelings, there are books for that as well. Stay tuned and catch us here tomorrow as we continue the celebration of Black Children's Book Week. We'll see y'all later.